Bonjour mesdames, messieurs, je vous remercie d'être présents pour cette séance. Donc je vais présider, nous avons 4 intervenants, donc on va commencer rapidement. Le premier intervenant, c'est le docteur Bayev, qui a fait ses études à l'université de Sofia en histoire, qui a un master et un bachelor en philosophie. Il a fait sa thèse en histoire contemporaine à l'Académie des sciences de Bulgarie en 1982. Et actuellement, il est professeur d'histoire internationale et donc chercheur au Collège de la Défense nationale Rakovski. Il est professeur invité dans différentes universités. Il a été secrétaire scientifique de l'Institut bulgare d'histoire militaire entre 1995 et 1998 et secrétaire général de la Commission bulgare d'histoire militaire entre 1996 et 2005. Donc il a aussi effectué différentes recherches aux États-Unis et il a reçu l'Institut Nobel d'Oslo. Donc je vais lui donner la parole, puisqu'il va nous parler. Donc le titre, c'est Bulgaria and the Establishment of the State of Israel. Donc, monsieur.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. I'm very grateful, dear colleagues, to the organizers that they gave me opportunity to speak today, because today is national holiday of Bulgaria, a day of unification of Bulgaria, northern and southern part of Bulgaria in 1885. So it's very official for me to present this issue. Actually, it could not be understood the position of Bulgaria toward the establishment of the State of Israel if you don't know the prehistory, the history of Jewish community in my land, in my countries. Of course, I have no time here to do an overview on it, but I'll just mention 2-3 very important things. The first archaeological excavations about Jewish presence in Bulgaria was from 2nd, 3rd century during the Roman Empire, of course. It is very interesting for the medieval European history, the history of European Christian royal families, that in 1345 Bulgarian King Johann Alexander married a young, very beautiful Jewish lady, Sarah. It was unknown for other. And she gave birth to the last Bulgarian king, Johann Shishman, who fell in a battle with the Ottoman Empire. And to one of her daughters was a wife of Byzantine Emperor Andronicus Palaeologus, and also other of her daughters married forcefully the first Sultan Murad of Ottoman Empire. So there is connection with Jews in this sense. It is very interesting, the history of Sephardic Jews in the southeastern Europe and in the Bulgarian lands. But I would like just to mention a triumphalist visit of Herzl, Theodor Herzl, in Bulgaria in 1896 in his way to Constantinople. So there are some interesting facts about presence and activity of Jewish community in Bulgaria, especially as officers and soldiers in Bulgarian army after the liberation of Bulgaria in 1878. However, one of the very important things is, probably most of you know about it, Bulgaria was the only ally of Nazi Germany that the people of Bulgaria saved or rescued the Bulgarian citizens of Jewish origin. 48,000 of Jews were saved from deportation to Treblinka and other Nazi death camps. I'm glad to inform you that yesterday in Wetzler Park, Charles Square in Tel Aviv, Benjamin Netanyahu and Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov opened a monument for this event, 75 years of the salvation of Bulgarian Jews. And also I'm glad to present to our host, respectful Colonel Benny Michelson, a catalog with documents about a Jewish community in Bulgaria and the rescue of Bulgarian Jews. Please. It is in English and Bulgarian. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So I just want to focus on the years 1944, 1948. Well, immediately after the military coup in Bulgaria on 9th of September 1944 and the establishment of new government, the question of eventual Jewish state in Palestine became a subject for discussions among the ruling circles. On 22nd of September 1944, Bulgarian Foreign Minister Professor Petko Stajnov declared the right of free immigration of Bulgarian Jews to Palestine. The Minister of Propaganda announced also the positive attitude of the government toward the establishment of a Jewish state in the region. Am I speaking good or you read slowly? Okay. In the early December 1944, David Ben-Gurion paid a one-week visit to Bulgaria. He had talks with Prime Minister Timon Georgiev and other members of the Bulgarian government. After discussion with the Minister of Interior, Ben-Gurion sent a letter to him with a request to facilitate the procedures of issuing foreign passports to the Bulgarian Jews who intend to travel to Palestine. During the International Jewish Conference in London in August 1945, the Bulgarian and Polish delegations from Eastern Europe supported the final common declaration for establishment of Jewish state in Palestine. A few weeks after his election as Prime Minister of Bulgaria, Georgi Dimitrov, maybe you know his final speech at the Reichstag fire trial in 1933 in Leipzig, he met in his office on 3rd December 1946 with a delegation of Bulgarian Zionist organizations who had to attend the 22nd Zionist Congress in Basel. Bulgarian Prime Minister quite clearly assured the members of the delegation that very soon after the signing of the peace treaty with Bulgaria, a free immigration of the Bulgarian Jews will be permitted officially. In April 1947, a Bulgarian parliamentary delegation attended the annual conference of the Interparliamentarian Union in Cairo. They received a memorandum on the situation in Palestine signed by Professor Weizmann and Ben-Gurion, and a very detailed report about the political and ethnic situation in Palestine was prepared by the leaders of the delegation. One military intelligence officer undercover was infiltrated inside the Bulgarian delegation. In a detailed intelligence report, after his return back to Sofia, some new data about two clandestine Zionist organizations, Irgun Zwei Leguni and so-called Stern Group, Lehi, was included. This information was obtained in Haifa through a Bulgarian-born member of the armed Zionist resistance, born in Plovdiv. According to the report, the territory of Palestine was transformed in a battle zone in the struggle against the British domination in the area. At the time when the armed actions of the Jews' underground resistance forces, Haganah, increased significantly, and the Palestine question had its final stage of discussion in the United Nations, the emigration of Bulgarian Jews increased visibly as well. It was facilitated by the termination of the Elliott Control Commission for Bulgaria with the coming in force of the Paris Peace Treaty. At the end of September and in October 1947, 3 ships with 4,000 Romanian and 2,700 Bulgarian Jews departed from Bulgarian seaports Varna and Burgas to Palestine. Those actions provoked the British government to react with a verbal note against the Jewish immigration from Bulgarian territory. Despite of the fact that United Nations General Assembly approved a special resolution in favor of the establishment of Jewish and Arab state in Palestine, on 27th of December 1947, the head of the British legation in Sofia, John Stordale Bennett, addressed a new protest note to the Bulgarian Foreign Minister Vasil Kolarov with a request to stop the traffic of Jews from Varna and Burgas to Palestine. In his official response, Bulgarian Foreign Minister denounced the charges. Exactly in those days, at the end of December 1947, more than 15,000 Romanian and Bulgarian Jews left Bulgaria by sea on their way to the Eretz Israel. On 9th of March 1948, after a proposal by the Prime Minister Georgi Dimitrov, a special resolution in support to the establishment of the new state of Israel in Palestine and for eventual cooperation between communists and Zionists was approved. The resolution declared, "We are obliged not to oppose and hold up these Jews who voluntarily want to live for Palestine." In an official statement, the Deputy Prime Minister Traicho Kostov declared Bulgarian government support for the struggle for independence of Israel. The leadership of the Jewish consistory in Bulgaria issued special directives in support of Haganah fight for establishment of a free and democratic Jewish state, and to organize mass aliyah of the Bulgarian Jews in Israel. Just for a half year, from October 1948 till May 1949, about 33,000 Bulgarian Jews immigrated to the new state of Israel. The provisional Israeli government sent a request to the Bulgarian government for recognition of the new state in Palestine. On 9th of September, Foreign Minister Moshe Shertok sent a telegram to his Bulgarian colleague Vasil Kolarov on the matter. In the absence of Foreign Minister Kolarov, the Deputy Foreign Minister Kamenov addressed a resolution to his subordinates that a proposal for establishment of diplomatic relations with Israel must be forwarded to the Council of Ministers. However, in this period, from September to November 1948, the Prime Minister Dimitrov was in a Kremlin hospital and sanatorium near Moscow for medical treatment. Foreign Minister Kovarov also was out of the country, attending unofficially the third session of the United Nations General Assembly in Paris. Immediately after the returning from Moscow of the Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers approved the proposal for establishment of diplomatic relations with two new states outside Europe, Israel and North Korea. On 29th of November 1948, Vasil Kovarov sent a telegram to Israeli Foreign Minister informing him that Bulgarian government has approved a decision to establish diplomatic relations with the Jewish state. That decision was officially announced and published next day. In his response from 3rd December, Moshe Chertok declared that this decision will permit the creation of a new era in the friendly relations that always have existed between our two peoples, and for strengthening of the world peace and the Middle East stability. According to official documentation of Bulgarian Foreign Ministry, the date of Kovarov's telegram, 29th of November, is considered as date of establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. However, some Israeli historians quoted another date, 4th of December, probably because in 4th of December in the Israel media was published the telegram of Moshe Chertok. In November 1949, the director of East European section of the Israeli Foreign Ministry visited several countries in the region, including Bulgaria. In a telegram from Tel Aviv, Hakiria, he expressed his personal gratitude for the cordial hospitality of his Bulgarian colleagues and proposed a procedure for exchange of diplomatic representations, which happened 2 years later. In my full paper, I am dealing as well with some interesting conclusions and estimates of Bulgarian Minister of Defense and military intelligence services in the next years when Bulgaria had no diplomatic relations from 1967 till 1990 with Israel. And it was very interesting to look at these estimations when Bulgarian military experts appraised very highly the strategy and tactics of the young and combinative Israeli generals and officers. I'll go to my conclusion. The long-term attitude of Bulgaria towards the establishment of a Jewish state in Palestine was positive in general, starting with the first initiatives in that direction by the modern Zionist organizations at the end of 19th and the early 20th century. The Bulgarians themselves suffered for centuries from a foreign yoke and were sympathetic with the destiny of other oppressed nations like Armenians and Jews. Immediately after the World War II, the new Bulgarian government voiced categorically in support for the struggle of the Jewish communities and facilitated the large immigration of thousands of Bulgarian and East European Jews to Palestine, despite of the fact that in those months the international status of the country was still unsettled until the Paris Peace Treaty. The Jews in the newly established state of Israel, born in Bulgaria, contributed significantly with their intelligence, diligence, and sense of responsibility to the further development of their new homeland. In spite of the dramatic obstacles and challenges due to the bipolar world confrontation, the positive contacts between the two nations never ceased, while the bilateral relations between Bulgaria and Israel experienced their visible and fruitful progress in the contemporary post-Cold era. The proof is the visit of Bulgarian Prime Minister yesterday and a day before to Israel. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup donc pour cette présentation. Donc je vais passer maintenant la parole à Monsieur Paolo Formoconi, qui est diplômé en histoire et en archives. Il est officier de réserve de l'armée italienne et il travaille au département historique de l'état-major de l'armée italienne. Il va donc nous parler de The Western Dogs, the Italian role in the Israeli Independence War. Je vous laisse la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. In the 1946, Italy was a country that was early rebuilding its structure, its unity, and its foreign position. The national territory was partially still under military Allied occupation, and it was full of war prisoners, refugees, and a lot of ruins. The management of this people stream was done by the Italian government and by the Allied military occupation authorities, who maintained the control of the Italian ports, railways, airports, military and foreign affairs. The worst problem was the situation of many tens of thousands of foreign militaries and refugees who wouldn't come back in the Eastern Europe. There were also some tens of thousands of Jews who expected to go in Palestine at any cost. The Italian government, at the before of the referendum of monarchy republic, was in a difficult condition. The British intention was to keep every illegal immigration from Italy to Palestine. At the same time, the issue, the Jews International Organization, was trying for every way to undercross this opposition. The organization in Italy was directed by Yehuda Arazzi, an officer of the Jewish Brigade of the British Army that was dislocated in Italy since the 1944. After the demobilization of the brigade, will be the problem to direct these operations. For this reason, at the end of the 1945, has been sent in Italy a little crew of secret agents. Ada Sereni, widow of a war hero, Joy Golan, an Egyptian Jew expert of the Mediterranean world, and Vittorio Segre, a young Italian Jew immigrated in Palestine after the 1938 and became a warrant officer in the British Special Service. The most important contributes that they will found in Italy were Raffaele Cantoni, the most important Jew personality in Italy, and the Colonel Merrill, alias Renato Mieli, an Italian Jew born in Egypt, became a British intelligence officer and maybe a Soviet agent. This is a strange case. The most frequent warning that British authorities was repeating to the Italian police, ordering the arrest of the Jewish activities, was the red danger inside the Zionist organization. They didn't expect to have a red spy in their service. And not only one. After all, the British intel about the communist activity in the Zionist organization was not totally false. Many reports of the Italian Secret Service explain that some communist agents are making propaganda in the refugee camps. A part of the Zionist movement was really in strong relation with the Soviet Union and with the Italian Communist Party. An important politician, Yaakov Azan, was going to make with Moshe Sheh and Meir Yari in the 1949 a secret military organization inside the Israeli army to help the Red Army in the case of war between the Western powers and the Soviet Union. The plot will fail, but his rumors will create fear for many time in Israeli politics. Ada Sereni has been sent in Italy to replace Arazi some months before he's coming back in Israel, to take the direction of the operation in Italy. This operation, named Aliyah Back, consisted in taking the adhesion in the refugee camps, managing the transfer to the secret boarding point, and renting the ships. Mrs. Sereni understood immediately that it will be indispensable the agree of the Italian authorities. Almost all of refugees was without documents, and there was not a country that could to provide. They were people on all of papers, and this waiting could be last an indefinite time. Without document, every departure was illegal. Someone in Italy agreed with the help to the Israeli activities for humanitarian reasons. Others wanted to cancel the legacy of the fascist policy against the Jews. Others expected a support from the Jew community in the USA to improve the Italian position at the peace conference. Many people would simply contradict the Great Britain policy. There were many peoples was not persuaded to help strongly the Israeli activity. The Italian monarchists had in Great Britain the only foreign support. Many diplomatics was warning in the Arab state were still living many tens of thousands of Italians. Someone was still convinced by the fascist propaganda about a communist Jew pact. The Italian public opinion had known the problem of the Jews' immigration in the first day of April 1946, when the ships Fenice and Fede, full of thousands of refugees, has been stopped in La Spezia by the Italian police at the orders of the British command. The Jews, on the first time, has been mistaken with fascists or Germans, were being menaced by the crowd. When the mistake has been fixed, the Italian people turned his anger against the police. The British Premier Bevin ordered to intern the refugees, but the Italian Chief of Navy Staff, the Admiral Maugeri, refused. The British authorities asked to replace the Admiral, but the Italian government took time. The American command in Italy didn't agree with the English policy. Another help arrived by the British side. The 10th of April, the Labourist Member of Parliament Harold Laski visited the two ships. At the end, the ships has been released on condition that them will not arrive in Palestine before the 17th of May. The episode was the turning point of the Italian behavior. In the same months, the Palestinian situation was getting extreme, with attacks and reprisals from both the parts. But the photograph of the HMS Rowena shooting and ramming a ship full of Jewish refugees badly impressed public opinion. From this moment, after this moment, the help to the Jews' emigration will be done with the approval of the public opinion and the courteous assent of Italian and American government. The 10th February 1947, Italy signed the East Treaty of Peace with the Allied powers. After this, Italy rescued the most part of sovereignty in its territory. However, the air condition, especially about the lost eastern territories and the warships, increased the hostility against Great Britain. Ada Sereni gained to obtain a secret meeting with the Italian Prime Minister Alcide De Gasperi in April 1948. He had just won the political election. She receives the assurance that the Italian police forces were going to close 1A and better boat over the Israeli activities. The meeting included also a second agreement that Ada Sereni didn't tell in her memories. The proclamation of Israel was fixed for the 14th May 1948. After this term, the immigration toward Palestine was going to be free. Now there was a country that could give them a passport. The new emergency, of which Sereni, Golan and Segre has been tasked, were going to be purchase of modern weapons and instructors for the Israeli forces. Many Italian former officers were being contacted to go to fight in Israel. How many Italians fought in the war of the 48-49? We don't know the exact number, but not so much. Probably they were some tens. The most important of them were obviously the instructors for the Naval Special Forces, sent in Israel by the chief of the Italian Intelligence Navy Service, Admiral Agostino Calosi. The Italo-Israel naval collaboration had a prequel. In 1934, after an agreement between the Italian government and the World Zionist Organization, has been created in the port of Civitavecchia a Jewish naval academy under the supervision of the Italian Navy. Officially, the academy is a civil naval school for mentioned Navy officers, but in the 3 years of its activity, the school formed 2,000 officers, the most part of which will become the first ranks of the future Israeli Navy, like the Admiral Avram Blas. Until the fascist-racist turning in the 1938, the academy stopped its activity, but some contacts remained between his students and the Italian officers. One of them, the Chief of Navy Admiral Franco Maugeri, accepted immediately to help the newborn Israeli Navy, but according with the orders with the Defense Minister Pacciardi, decided to limit as it was possible the official engagement of the Italian officers. The instructors were be recruited from the many former officers demobilized after the war. The chief selected for the little group of instructors was the warrant officer Fiorenzo Capriotti, who declared himself as very happy to fight against Great Britain again. Joined with him has been sent the sub-lieutenant Nicola Conte, a specialist of submarine assault. In the April 1948, with the false name of Mr. Katz, Capriotti examined the first expedition of military equipment and issue for the Israeli Navy, 6 motor torpedo boats. The boats were officially purchased to transform them in touristic motorboats. Yehuda Razzi had tried some weeks before to buy also an escort carrier, but it was reputed not possible. It would have been too hard to convince the Allied military authorities in Italy that it would be relevant in a commercial ship. A 5 time later, Capriotti and Conte started in the Tiberiad Lake the training of the first assault group of Israeli Marine, Shahed 13. One of them, Ben Nun, will be another chief of Israeli Navy. After some months, the 22nd of October, the assault squad sank in the port of Gaza the admiral ship of the Egyptian Navy, the escort Farouk. Well, not all of the veterans of the Italian Navy Special Forces were on the same front. At the same time, when Capriotti trained the Jewish recruits, some of Italian specialists were engaged by the British intelligence service to demanage Jewish ships in the Italian ports. Between the 1947 and 1948, 4 ships has been sunk by a sabotage. In one of them, Medea, were found a British-made bomb. But there were also other Italians on the Arab side of the war. An informative by the Italian intelligence service report in the 1948 that a British agent was recommending a former Italian officer to Arab agents in Italy. The mission of the Italian officer was the recruitment of a volunteers Italian legion to take part in the war against the Jewish state. The Italian officer was the retired General Gustavo Pesenti, an old colonial officer who in the World War I has been the commander of the small Italian contingent in Syria-Palestine until the 1918. After the General Pesenti, who spoke quite fluently Arab language, fought in Libya against local rebels and in Somalia against the Ethiopians. The general, who lived in Genoa and was described as quite deaf, came frequently to Rome officially to care his investment in the Anglo-Persian Company. Although he flaunted a strong anti-British behavior, notoriously Pesenti was in relation with the British military authorities since the Palestinian period. During the World War II, when he was military commander of South Somalia, he proposed to the Viceroy Amedeo d'Aosta to do a separate armistice with the Allied nations and, like General de Gaulle, install an anti-fascist government in Africa against the fascist power. The Duke strongly refused the option, but he didn't arrest the general and only sent back him in Italy. The general activity has been reputed inappropriate, and the document suggests to not allow any other contacts with foreign emissaries. The Italian intelligence service documents doesn't explain exactly as the general has been deterred, but the option of Italian volunteer legion quickly disappeared. One of the most important Israeli agents in Italy was Dan Avni, alias Vittorio Segre, a Piedmont Jew who had lived in Italy after the racial law in the 1938, becoming warrant officer in the British Army and working in the intelligence service and at the same time for the Zionist organization. During the war, he worked also with the Italian Secret Service named Battalion 808 that was under Allied control. In the following years, Segre returned in Italy, of which he was still citizen, become law student. And apparently he was outside the Zionist clandestine activities. The only problems of Vittorio Segre in this period with Italian authorities, like himself explained in his autobiographies, were about his not done military service and his illicit and sexual cohabitation with the legal life of Mr. Danavni, who was himself. Not all the Italian authorities had knowledge of his position, and some reports about his suspect activities arrived to the Secret Service head from the 1946. In the February in the 1947, the Italian Secret Service retired his Italian Secret Service ID badge, probably on British request, and after this he was strictly oversaw. After the proclamation of Israel, Avni Segre started to organize the first parachutist unit of the IDF. The operation base was in Czechoslovakia, where the communist government assumed the power at the beginning of 1948. The Czechoslovakian airports were the materials sending point forward Israel, especially light fire weapons and airplanes. And Avni Segre went many times to Praga through the Italian territory. The British service suggests to Italians that he might be a communist agent and required to stop him. Avni Segre was an Italian citizen, and therefore it was possible to stop his trip forward East Europe simply retiring his passport. However, in the same weeks, Ada Sereni was doing her agreement with the Italian premier, and the attitude of Italian police was changing. An handwritten billet suspend the Avni affair for the Italian Secret Service. Don't deal with Segre longer. After the war, he will return in Italy like an officer of the Israeli embassy, and he began the new chapter of his life. At the end, after the end of the war, in the second part of the 1949, the Italian position about the Arabo-Israeli conflict was starting to change another time. The existence of the new state was now assured, like his victory in the war. The Holy Side in Rome was making from the 1948 strong pressures over the Italian diplomacy and over all the Catholic countries to start a discussion about a new state for the city of Jerusalem, an international mandate that would subtract the city to both the continents. In the last, the British behavior with Israel was quite changed, and Italian support, consequently, was less important. At the same time, the British control over the Italy was over, replaced from the American one, and therefore Italian hostility was past. The creation of North Atlantic Treaty Organization was starting to change all powers relations. Italian recognized the State of Israel the 7th February 1949. All the countries was opening a new period in its foreign relation. Italy and Israel was starting the new capital of their existence, reborning one to democracy, the other one to the history. Thanks for your attention.
Merci beaucoup. Donc nous allons passer à la troisième communication de cette matinée, enfin de cette séance. Donc le professeur Preda, qui a un doctorat en histoire de l'Université de Bucarest, qui a été diplomate jusqu'à 2016, puisqu'il a été ambassadeur extraordinaire et ministre plénipotentiaire à Cuba jusqu'à 2016. Il a été également membre du bureau, il est toujours membre du bureau de la Commission internationale d'histoire militaire. Il a publié ou été co-auteur d'une soixantaine de volumes et d'environ 180 études et d'articles qui ont été publiés en Roumanie et dans différents pays. Donc aujourd'hui, il va nous parler de Romania at the birth of the State of Israel, 70 years after the establishment of diplomatic relations. Je vous laisse la parole.
Merci, chers collègues. I would like to stress some ideas concerning Romania and its position towards Israeli state. After near 2,000 years of foreign domination, dispersed and wandering in the four horizons of the earth, after many and terrible survival attempts culminating with the Holocaust during the Second World War, the Jewish people has regained in 1948 his own independence and sovereign state on the territory of ancient Palestine. The Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel, based on United Nations resolution on 29th November 1947, the legitimacy of the modern Jewish state alongside an Arab state in the Palestine territory is an act of strong political will, a great event. We can say a turning point both in the history of the Jewish nation and for evolution of the international relations, with consequences till today. We talk about a number of complex and difficult circumstances, starting from the beginning of its evolution and during all period of the Cold War, with direct and many consequences in the region of Near and Middle East and Far East. 20 years ago, I published a first volume with 204 documents and with ample notes, offering general image of the Romanian-Israeli relation, giving also an edition in English to a better understanding of the geopolitical coordinate of the events, in the international developments. So, I shall try now to say the sources of this period are different, various, and very important from Romanian point of view. I talk about the diplomatic documents, and including here consular reports from Palestine between 44 till 48. Other documents are the documents of the Communist Party. Now they are in national archives, and you know the influence of the communist world with Soviet Union as center to spread in this part of the world. Another important and not research, despite the riches, are military archives. And unfortunately my health was damaged and I didn't end, but I hope till to present and to publish my intervention to end this research. Very interesting concerning appreciation on the military field and influences of the developments in the region. And the fourth is very important, the press, media. Not only of the party, but also other papers, and adding influences from different foreign information reports. I remember a few years ago the famous, great personality, Shimon Peres, said in the last presence in Romania that a massive Jewish immigration, about 500,000 of people, helped our nation, said Peres, to consolidate Israel and represent up to date a human bridge and experience of life. We distinguish three periods. First, between the end of the world, Second World War, until November 47. Second period is the so-called name, the period of civil war, and Danny Asher, my good friend, colleague, published recently a veritable contribution. And all these fights are connected to the British mandate, the position taken for the establishment of a sovereign independent state of Israel. The second period is starting with the proclamation of independence and till the armistice of July 20, 1949, with this First World War between Israel and the coalition states of Arab states, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Transjordania, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia. And we have a number of information, references. As the result of all this evolution is the consolidation of existence of an Israel independent and sovereign. I remember, and the press commented, the Romanian press commented, the notes of the Arabid Committee at the end of 47. It's some like a word mentioned up to date. Only with blood and fire it will be resolved the Jewish question. Explaining why in such circumstances aggravating by the unclear situation of peace treaty negotiation and the start immediately after the proclamation of independence of the war, 1948-49, one of the most important confrontation in Near Orient after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Al-Nakba, the catastrophe suffered by the Arab intervention, was the first coalition intervention in this region after the Second World War, and the building of a new problem or new challenges. Up to date, must recognize the Palestine questions with adding the refugee problem. It's the burden of the past, la pèse du passé, de notre passé contemporain. The root sorashashim of these questions are in this period of intolerance, but also with many hopes for peace, cooperation, and progress of democratic life. Few words concerning diplomatic relations started in 1948 between Romania, who was one of the first states that recognizes and established in May 48 relation with the provisional government, with the state of Israel. What is the characteristic, the main characteristic of Romanian-Israel relation? The only of the center-eastern side of Europe is the continuity. Other states interrupted after the Six-Day War. I quote because Romania arrived immediately and recognized in one of the first reports that only Soviet Union, United States, United Kingdom, and France have legation or embassy. And some other country consulate as Poland and later other countries. In 17 of July, 48, the Romanian report said, we assisted in an impressive military parade. The war starting immediately in 15 of May. This parade, said this report, represent an opportunity for Israel to show its current force, military force, on the eve of resumption of talks with Syria to ceasefire and to discuss with them in Lausanne. A much disputed land we read in some military documents, trying to put in evidence some characteristic of unusual war and on a territory controversial. Immigration remained during this period the political axis of the Israeli government, and so, despite the developments of military field, they are determinant factor in relations on diplomatic field. And Romania, says the representative of Israeli, has the largest number of Jews in the Eastern European countries, exception normally Soviet Union. I can also stress two other ideas to understand why Romania, with some leadership of Jewish origin, support, despite the position change of Soviet Union in fall 48, to continue this immigration. The war ended in 45, put complex and individual dramas, not only the community. The proclamation of the State of Israel has a very serious and profound imprint of all Jewish people in Romania. But in the same time, because all military developments of political buildings are connected with the social problems. After a long period of war, with drama, with loss of million lives, the political change and the instituting the communist regime in many countries, including Romania, influence, of course, the destiny of Jewish population. A report of the secret information of the army says Jewish are worried about the events in Palestine. Is a characteristic and very important to understand why, despite in the first moment was not so great desire to immigrate. But after that, with these social political changes, the reaction is very clear. In the same time, I try to point another aspect. In 46, 47, and beginning of 48, we assist near the mountain chain of Romania, Meridional Carpats, some pre-military campments where the young Jewish people are trained. Nobody knows till today about this. And was an illegal but accepted by the authorities of this immigration. So I hope that my few ideas and suggestions means we need to go to the archives. We need to investigate better because it represents a world in change with influence, consequences of our lives, of the people's lives between this Europe, so this Europe, and we assisted very well of Jordan Baev, and Italy was a turning point even for Romania and the Near and Middle East. Thank you, Toda Raban, all of you for the attention, and I hope to continue the volumes of documents treating this important relation. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Donc il y a eu un petit changement puisqu'on vient de m'avertir là, tout à l'heure qu'il y a eu une défaillance d'intervenants dans la session à côté. Et donc on a demandé au colonel Poplavski